One day at the end of 2022, a man named Dan Forrester, an ex-member of the U.S. Special Forces, now serving as a scientist, is on the phone with the recruiter of the special project. Unfortunately, after bringing groceries back home, he is informed that his job application is rejected, making him outraged, but luckily his wife Emmy and daughter Muri manage to cheer him up. Meanwhile, since 3 of them are hosts of a party, the whole neighborhood is in their house watching the World Cup. In the middle of the game, the TV suddenly glitches for a few seconds as everyone stares at it before it gets back to normal. Oh, this sounds interesting. Could it be something more than a random glitch? Yes, it could. A huge hole appears in the middle of the pitch as a group of soldiers comes out of it, making the people watching the TV terrified. They are scared to death, so you can only guess how the audience in the stadium along with the players must be feeling. A woman comes out of the portal and she introduces herself as Lieutenant Hart and informs all of the spectators that she is coming from the future and reveals something shocking to them. Keep watching the video to find out what it is. It turns out that the lieutenant and other soldiers are fighting against dangerous and bloodthirsty aliens called white spikes who are about to wipe out the whole human race, so therefore Hart calls everyone to stop them. You have probably expected a twist, but like this one? Not really. Year upon that, Dan is watching the TV as he learns that the soldiers managed to travel through time using the time travel mechanism called the jump link. In addition, soldiers and civilians are sent every day to the future, to the year 2051, to help fight against the aliens. Talking about time travel, when do you think it's going to happen in reality? The next day, Dan, while teaching his students the biology lesson, he asks them to talk about what excites them to break the monotony of the boring class. If we all had a teacher like this one, who interrupts his boring lecture himself. The kids start asking questions about the war with aliens, but Dan somehow relieves them of stress and anxiety, telling them that it is in the distant future. Relax kids, you are going to die in 30 years, not like tomorrow. How is that relaxing, Dan? Afterward, Dan is mobilized and the military workers reveal that only those people who died before 2051 can travel to the future and fight against the aliens, making him suitable as he allegedly dies in 2030. Well, Dan, look on the bright side, at least you will miss the year of your death and prolong your lifespan. Or not? Let's find out. Before Dan exits the facility, he acquires the tracking device, making him trackable everywhere on Earth. At the same time, Emmy, who is a therapist, is having a session with soldiers who came back alive but are injured and crippled. Dan tells her everything afterward. At least your wife is a therapist, Dan, so she can help you if you come back alive. Jokes aside, Dan comes up with a way to remove the device from his hand and pays his father, a mechanic, a visit. However, after bringing up the unresolved family issues, the two engage in an argument, and Dan decides to join the war rather than evade it. After saying goodbye to his wife and daughter, Dan enrolls in military training. During the training, Dan comes across Charlie, a man with a Ph.D. in Earth and Atmospheric Sciences. Charlie makes one of the soldiers, Dorian, nervous, and he stops Charlie from talking. Later, during the break, Dan and Charlie share their opinion on time travel with each other. Civilian soldiers are divided into 2 groups called D-Force and R-Force and are informed that the aliens come back to their nests, Sabbaths, every 6 days. Dan, Charlie, and other scientists are arranged into an R-Force and they must assist the researchers in the future. Does it mean that they are going to be exempt from fighting the aliens? Keep watching to find out very soon. Due to the last research facility in 2051 being under attack, the soldiers are sent to the future through the jump link before the queue. Unfortunately, the portal glitches, and instead of teleporting them to Miami Beach, it drops them to the burning buildings from a very high position, killing or injuring most of them. Luckily, Dan, Charlie, Dorian, and a small group of other soldiers fall into the pool on the rooftop and manage to survive the fall. They are indeed very lucky, but are heavily outnumbered now. On the other hand, just after realizing that Miami is destroyed, they are told that the whole city will be bombed because there is no other way of killing all the aliens in it. The colonel also orders them to rescue scientists from a nearby lab. Sadly, after they find the whole team dead, Colonel asks them to acquire some hard disks and other equipment from them before leaving the lab. Now fasten your seatbelts, you waited for this the whole time. The soldiers run into the white spikes for the first time as they attack each other. These creatures will give you nightmares, just look at them. Aliens kill some of the soldiers and also catch Dan, but luckily Dorian saves him and takes out the alien before they run out of the building. Meanwhile, high-tech vehicles are on their way to save the soldiers. The colonel announces that the places marked with red gas will be bombed and advises soldiers to avoid them. Aliens attack and destroy all the vehicles. On the other hand, soldiers are running with all their might seconds before the bombing of the area. As the tension builds, do you think they are going to survive? It turns out that they could escape just in time and all of them wake up in a medical tent afterward. Colonel calls Dan to talk to her in private, and she thanks him for retrieving the equipment including hard disks. She reveals that her last name is Forrester, which makes Dan realize that the Colonel is Muri, his daughter, from the future. Unbelievable. What a majestic reunion. The two of them have a walk and Muri shows Dan the female alien. Dan acknowledges that they will need the toxin which can kill both male and female animals to win the war. Muri, Dan, and the extraction team board the helicopter to find and investigate the female white spike. Dan, you won't have a better chance to ask her about the details of your death. Dan asks Muri about it, but she only ignores him. Is she hiding something? What could it be? As soon as they arrive at the location, Muri goes into the cave to hunt the alien along with her team, but orders Dan to stay in the helicopter and wait for them. Noticing they are having a hard time extracting the alien as male ones also appear and try to protect the female, Dan decides to exit the helicopter and help them. He arrives just in time to save his daughter, and the two of them together force the female white spike into the cage. They escape that place using the vehicle and are eventually picked up by the helicopter at the beach afterward. Just before boarding the helicopter, Dan tries to get information from his daughter once again. She then explains that Dan abandons his family in the future and is additionally killed in a car accident after divorcing Emmy. Wow, what a plot twist, who would have expected this? Two of them start investigating the alien intermittently, and their main goal is to discover the working toxin needed for alien neutralization. You all better hurry up, cause the alien seems like it's waking up from sedation. Not only that, but other aliens start approaching the lab and attacking it. To make things even worse, Dan realizes that he is running out of time, and is soon going to return to the present through the jump link. After all the bad news, maybe it's time for some good ones. Scientists manage to discover a toxin, and their new mission is to save Dan at all costs and give him the toxin to bring it back with him. Father and daughter then cross forces fighting with aliens, but one white spike somehow drags Muri into the ocean where all the other aliens are. You can guess what happens then. Too bad. At least Dan succeeded in claiming the toxin and returning alive from the mission along with a few other soldiers. All of them are taken care of briefly, but the bad news is that time travel is no longer possible as the jump link is offline due to massive destruction in the future, resulting in them being unable to produce more toxin samples and sending them to the future. Dan, however, is lucky enough that he has the opportunity to reunite with his family members who are alive and well. The next day, he rendezvous with Dorian, Charlie, and his student Martin to track the aliens. They discover that white spikes have been positioned in Russia for a long time but have emerged after the alien ship melted as a result of global warming. After the minister declines to help them in their mission, Dan invites his father, who accepts the offer this time. Hart also joins the squad, and she even brings lots of toxin samples with her, and they all board James's plane and they fly towards Russia. Eventually, they locate the ship and find lots of white spikes who are ready to get out from their pods. They proceed to inject toxins into the pods to kill them. We hope this works. It might be the last chance humanity has since the time portal is destroyed. However, the squad later discovers a lot of remaining white spikes and therefore decides to blow up a whole place using a C4. Don't celebrate too soon, as the last remaining pregnant female white spike manages to escape. Luckily, Dan, James, and Charlie chase it down and they kill it, although with lots of trouble and after an exhausting fight. You couldn't have wished for a better ending, as the squad accomplishes their mission successfully by killing all the aliens. Dan reunites with Emmy and Muri, also introducing his father, James, to them, after deciding to bury the hatchet. What was your favorite moment from today's video? You can tell us by commenting down below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.